Cannabis sativa is a fibrous flowering plant that was initially indigenous to Central and South Asia, but it is now grown all over the world. It has been legalized for growth in Barbados under certain stipulations. So, what are the principal purposes of the crop and what is it used for? Well, evidence from many years ago, thousands of years ago, indicate that it was being used for legitimate purposes for rope making. As it is a fibrous plant, it is very useful in this area, sort of like how we use, I think they call it Cecile. That's Cecile, kind of like a cactus type plant that we used to, in my days at school, we used to take this Cecile and scrape it out and get fibers from it and make rope and mats and baskets and all kind of stuff. Well, that was the original purpose of the cannabis plant, because it's a very fibrous flower. But for thousands of years now, it has also been used for non-traditional medicinal treatments, medicinal pain relief, and purposeful intoxication. It also obviously figures very significantly in many religious ceremonies across many cultures. We can relate to the Rastafarian culture, um, whereby it's part of their meditative process, part of their meditation process. So, what are the psychoactive chemical components of marijuana? We know that marijuana alters mood and attenuates pain. It is unique in that tetrahydrocannabinol is fat soluble. So, what does this mean? When it is consumed, it is absorbed into the fatty tissue of the body. For example, the epidermal, vital organs, the central nervous system. All right. Other circumstances such as cocaine, morphine, etc., those harder opioids, and of course alcohol, are water soluble. All right. So what does this mean? Because uh, THC, which is the abbreviation for the chemical, the main component of marijuana, because that is fat soluble, it tends to remain in the system and is detectable. So cannabis accumulates in the fatty tissue, all right, so that so that what users actually experience is sometimes called reverse tolerance. Reverse tolerance, all right. What that means is that the more a person uses, the less they need to reach that point of impairment. The less they need to reach what we call the high. So the hardcore marijuana user typically will smoke throughout the whole day, but in very small quantities, right? Because they've built up this reserve, so they never um, they never actually come down from the last effect before they smoke for the next effect. So this is incredibly important. This is an incredibly important point to realize about marijuana. The way in which it stays in the system to help people continuously maintain high while waiting for the next ingestion. Now let's talk about the duration effects as it relates to street marijuana. This is something that is reported across several scientific journals. you have to look at the variation in strength between street marijuana, where it could range from a THC content of as low as 0.3% to as high as 30%. The medical marijuana product at this time has no standards in terms of potency. Um, the fact is that people are getting with the prescription, they are getting various strengths of the product because the distributors, the distribution, dispensaries, and the producers, even though they're using only licensed marijuana, they're going to produce different plants with different potency. So there may be a difference, there may be a slight difference. Now we got to realize we're in the infancy of this industry, and standards are being developed for all types of derivative products, the hashish, the cannabis oil. I know I saw somewhere, probably on social media, the development of cannabis oil for these electronic cigarettes. Um, so, there's a lot of products and byproducts being produced, um, and of course, the regulatory system has got to keep up with the legal use of this product, whether it be medicinal or recreational. We are focused on the medicinal uses here in Barbados because that is what has been authorized by the government of Barbados at this time under the Medical Marijuana Act of 2019 initially. Um, Now, as I said, we're in the infancy of the hashish. We're in the industry. We're in the infancy of the industry. We are in the infancy of the industry, and some of the things I just mentioned, like the hashish and the cannabis oil. Um, Hashish is known on the street as chocolate because it looks like chocolate. Um, it is a concentrated crushed marijuana form. All right, it's a concentrated crushed marijuana form. If you've ever seen it, um, because of my involvement with law enforcement, um, obviously you've seen the drug kits with the cocaine, the various amphetamines, the barbiturates, the cannabinoids, the cannabis products in their various forms, hashish, opium. I'm aware of what all these things, and we are aware of what all these things look like from a security standpoint. Um, but the thing about hashish, which is not prevalent to my knowledge in Barbados, is that it's crushed and it can be sometimes 50% or more THC. So it's a very potent form of it. Um, Now, inhalation is important to understand because on average, about 30% of users, uh, the THC peaks in the blood plasma within 10 minutes. And the half life, which is the rate of depreciation or the duration of the impairment or effect, um, it depends upon the individual's reverse intolerance, as described before. Um, that's an important factor, and of course, their physical build, etc. So, the frequency within which a user has to administer the cannabis product will vary from patient to patient or from recreational user to recreational user. All right, but we can see that there are some street drugs that probably are never going to be decriminalized. When we talk about cocaine and heroin, um, where the half life of these drugs is significantly less than cannabis. It's not fat soluble, and in a few hours, the half the bioavailability of the product is gone, and you're looking for another fix. All right. Plus, there's no medicinal benefits. Therefore, these things will probably remain in the illegal arena of substances. No, we basically got to move with the times. Remember in the 30s, I believe, in the years of prohibition, alcohol was illegal. You know, um, so with the legalization of alcohol, nobody thinks anything about someone having a drink. Even if you decide to be a drunk and to be all over the place, as we say, tottering about, nobody looks down on that other than the fact that you're wasting your money and your time and your life. We're seeing now that cannabis is moving from this illicit, illegal area into a legalized area on the specific parameters. But we're gonna have to still deal with the stigma attached to the product from the previous environment. And indeed, we must remember that it is only authorized for certain use within a certain framework under certain rules and guidelines. It is still not legal to operate outside that framework. So one of the main things in this industry in Barbados coming up is going to be the attachment hesitance. People, I don't want to be associated with this activity or whatever. As a security provider, I can see it. We've spoken to people that we know are going to be involved with this, and they just hinge around. They don't want to commit to say, fine, we're going to do this. Let's talk security. I'm not interested in anything else but security. And anything that is discussed is of course confidential. But they're hesitant to get involved and to say anything that would associate them with the product. This will change. So with government's approval for this industry, what has sprung up is the opportunity for companies which can provide transportation security, facility security, personnel security, as well as security monitoring in the electronic space, and of course money transport. Right? This is $1 billion industry globally. Don't get caught up don't get caught up in the $1 billion industry statistical statement. That doesn't apply to Barbados. That's a global figure, right? It's a growing thing. We will get our section. It's obviously something that will possibly is an area of foreign exchange revenue. Um, but as the movement to legalize medical marijuana grows, you're gonna get legalized shops. You're gonna get insurance companies having to jump on board to facilitate and step up and facilitate coverage. Now, as consultants, we've seen many challenges to new technologies coming in or to new industries coming in. There was and probably still is a challenge for insurance for drones. Because the actuaries didn't have any figures on which to base their calculation, and there was no legislation in place to sort of provide a framework under which they could calculate premiums. Um, the excuse me, the medical marijuana industry is going to go through the same teething problems. Um, the legislation is in place, but they're going to have to work out the risk of robbery, the risk of any other kind of public liability. Um, be, in order to be able to state premiums. So we're gonna have to probably see a little lag in the insurance coverage. But insurance is going to be critical because you need to insure your product, you need to insure your equipment um, against theft, against fire. Um, so I don't see it as a how should I put it, an insurmountable challenge to overcome or to negotiate. But it may be something that may take a couple of weeks or months to regularize after this thing really hits the ground and starts rolling. Now, we're talking about insurance companies, and we're also going to have to step up uh, on security solutions. The companies are going to have to retain employees, which are going to be able to deal with the um, possible emotionally disturbed client who is coming to get treatment. This is the security officer. Someone suffering from depression or um, um, one of the conditions that may manifest in what we would call not normal behavior, and you got to be able to handle that because it's a patient with a challenge, and they may be coming to get the medication. You got to deal with it in a professional way. So it's going to take a next level security officer. Um, you going to have to be very observant with employees, that the stock is not being sold behind the owner's back. Uh, that it's not being diverted in any way. And the whole nature of the thing is going to be a very high tech solution. So they're going to have to be very comfortable with high tech solutions. All right. Um, they also obviously in quite a few instances are going to have to be armed. So you're talking about a higher level security officer. And I think people in the industry need to realize this, as the old people say, uh, good thing the cheap thing the or cheap thing the good thing the cheap, this kind of thing. You have to pay to get service. All right. This is a world where um, we tend to have an attitude. Let me see if I can do it myself, or let me get away with the smallest expenditure possible. But I'm going to tell you up front, this is one of the industries you don't want to trade out with. All right, you need to get solid, robust security on the ground, or you are going to suffer in a significant way through pilferage, through theft, through all sorts of vulnerabilities that you're going to expose yourself to. All right. Um, Remember, criminals will try to rob a legalized marijuana store. So the most important thing for these companies is to realize the risk. It's a risk management situation, right? And we approach this integrated solutions approach from a risk management perspective. We're not looking at putting assets in place, security guard in the corner, access control, intrusion, fire alarm, perimeter sensors, this kind of thing, and slap them all together in a framework. There is a solution. There's a business concept that you have to marry. You have to mesh the business with the solution, and come up with something that is effective for the industry as it relates to Barbados, because our environment is going to be different from the lessons learned from other countries that are further down the road than we are. We've got our special environments, our special conditions, our special restrictions, our special limitations, and you need a consultancy that is able to deal with that from that point of view. So one of the main things is we're going to have to realize the risk. Insurance companies are going to have to be comfortable with that risk. So you're gonna have to deal with some policies, some standard operating procedures and company policies. That's going to be the base of the marijuana operation, and of course, it's going to be the base of licensing application. Um, Now, what are your policies? How are they interpreted? And what are the duties and obligations of the premise owners? You know, um, the security solutions provider, and the insurance companies. Now, medical marijuana establishments have customer personal information, because you got to present your ID card for service. And if someone breaks in, either by hacking or by physically stealing personal information, from the establishment, you need to be covered from an insurance standpoint in terms of the kind of identity theft that may result from that. You need to make sure that your chain of command, in terms of reporting, in terms of post orders, in terms of the contract itself, is clear. Who is your security officer supposed to report to? Who is he supposed to report to? Is he reporting to the management on the premises? Is he reporting to the supervisor that happens to be on the premises at the time? Is he reporting to the supervisor of the company, of the security provider? All these things are very important. All right. Now let's deal with the aspect of employees who are using marijuana off the organization's time, and property. All right. They're coming to work with tactical levels of THC, metabolites of it in their system. So they're coming to work with the tactical levels of THC and the metabolites of that in their system. This should not be a challenge, of course, for the employer, because we advise employers to suggest to their employees that if they choose to smoke marijuana, knowing that it remains in the system for up to 30, sometimes in some cases up to 60 days after consumption, that if that is their drug of choice, maybe they should be finding another job, because you don't want to expose yourself as a security provider, as a distributor, as a dispenser, as an armor carrier security provider, to people who are at work impaired and could compromise the integrity and the ethics of your operation. So you want to keep your operation clean, right? So understand that as a security provider, you've got cash, you've got product. This is both for security provider and a practitioner in the business. You got cash, you got product. Prime target for criminals, both opportunistic, and planned. You may need to deal with some testing in your workforce, because they may like medical marijuana for recreational use, or they may dislike it. But in the long run, it's not really a matter of what one likes or dislikes. It's a question it's a question of risk for you and your responsibilities under the law. So the more steps that you take to keep operations within the boundaries and ethics and regulations, the better to protect your operations from negative consequences.